The state of Michigan occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabeg, Three Fires Confederacy, the Odawa, Ottawa, Ojibwe, Chippewa, and Potawatomi. The Michigan Democratic Party recognizes historic Indigenous communities in Michigan and those forcibly removed from their homelands. We further recognize the ongoing relationship of dependence upon respect for all living beings of earth, sky, and water. In this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences.
Yes, thank you, Miigwech. Ani Boju, I'm Stacey Ettawageshik. I am the lead survivor outreach specialist for Little Traverse Babyans of Odawa Indians Human Services. I'm also the board president of Uniting Three Fires Against Violence, and I've been a caucus member since 2020, I believe. And so thank you for coming tonight. And we'll be talking about the missing and murdered Indigenous women crisis and how it's connected to pipelines. So we'll start with Regina's introduction and comments.
Ani Nakikwa Nadijnakas Waganaxing Odawa Ogamakwe. So I just want to say Chimigwich to the Anishinaabek Caucus and to Stacey for allowing me to speak on such an important issue that we have for our women. We know the facts. I'm going to just share a few of them with you. More than 84% of the Indigenous women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. We know that 96% of these acts of violence will come from non-Native men. And we know that an overwhelming majority of the victims will never receive justice. We know that in some areas, Indigenous women are murdered at a rate of more than 10 times the national average. So, and with that, I would like to share with you a few of the things that the federal government, state, and the tribes are working on to try and help protect our women. So right now, I would like to start out with, as everybody knows, we have Deb Haaland as our Secretary of Interior. And when Deb got into office, the first thing she did was she formed a new missing and murdered unit referred to as MMU by the Bureau of Indian Affairs of Justice Services, which will provide leadership and direction for cross-departmental and interagency working involvement missing and murdered American Indians and Alaska Natives. This will help to put the full weight of the federal government into the investigation of these cases and marshal law enforcement resources across federal agencies and throughout Indian country. A task force of the missing and murdered Indigenous Indians, Alaska Natives called Operation Lady Justice was formed in 2019 to pursue these unresolved cases. With the MMU, there will be new leadership and support positions with continued policy development. Investigations remain unsolved, often due to the lack of investigative resources to identify new information. With the MMU, they are working with the tribe, the BIA, and the FBI investigators. And in 2020, May 2020, we had our first pilot program. The federal, state, local, and tribal leaders have jointly started Michigan's own Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons pilot project. Meeting began in October of 2020 and are taking the first steps in establishing the first tribal community response plan for the missing Indigenous person cases. The plan is focusing on improvement of the handling of emergent missing persons cases by outlining how tribal governments, law enforcement, and other partners can best work together to respond to such cases. Michigan is among the first of 6 pilot programs states developing community response plans. And here at Little Traverse Babyans, we are in the early stages of our own tribal response plan. And together, we all work together, we can bring our sisters home. And I just want to share with you some of the legislation we have at Little Traverse Babyans forth the tribal resolution 042719 designated May 5th as Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Native Women and Girls. Tribal resolution to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day as a tribal holiday on 10/7/21. And so with that, I would like to say also that the VAWA bill allows us to have jurisdiction to prosecute non-natives for crimes against our women, children, which is an incredible resource for us as we fight to protect. And I do want to say also that these women, the numbers that I have given you, but the women are not just statistics. They are people. They are our sisters, our mothers, our aunties, and our daughters. They are our water warriors. They are the valued members of our community. Everyone knows someone who's been impacted by these issues. Those of us who have served in our communities as elected officials have the duties to remember that and to fight for them. So with that, I'd like to say Chi-miigwech to Stacey and let her take over from here.
Chi-miigwech, Regina. Okay. All right, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so first I want to talk about United Three Fires Against Violence. They are the Michigan Tribal Domestic and Sexual Violence Coalition. They serve all 12 tribes in Michigan. All 12 tribes in Michigan have victim service programs. And these programs could assist with missing and murdered Indigenous women and their families. And they provide a great resource, training and technical assistance and support to all 12 tribes in Michigan. And they are doing a lot of work with MMIW right now. And so they are a great resource. We have monthly tribal advocate meetings so we can share resources and support and network with each other. And so just the other day, I had somebody call from, an advocate call from Pokagon. And, they had a member up by our area and, same with us. If we had a member down in that area, we know that we could call an advocate for assistance with resources and support. Next slide. And so like I'm saying, so they provide education, training events, advocacy, technical assistance to all 12 tribes in Michigan. And they are such a great asset to us here in Michigan. So check out their website, lots of great resources. Next slide. So at Little Traverse Bay Bands, we have Survivor Outreach Services, which is the victim service program. And we started in 2013, myself and Keely Fry, my coworker, and we wanted to have a victim service program to, have that cultural component that was kind of missing in our area. And that's so important for services to victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, dating violence, any kind of violence occurring, trafficking. And these all connect with missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so just some services we provide is support, safety planning, advocacy in the courts, advocacy in housing, any kind of support we can give to the victim's family to help them recover from this trauma. Next slide. Okay, so just a foundation of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and relatives. We all can use those different acronyms. We can say missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and Two-Spirit. It really happens to all of us and has been happening for thousands of years, right? So one of the earliest documented cases would be of Pocahontas. You know, and of course, we all know the Disney movie and how it was dramatized, how Pocahontas is sexualized as being this older woman, when in fact, in real life, in real history, she was about 13, 14 years old. And she was, you know, captured. She was taken by, you know, the Englishmen. And something interesting was that she was exploited in teaching the Englishmen the trade of planting and harvesting medicinal tobacco. So, you know, they essentially took that from her and exploited it. You know, and then she ends up dying when she was about 21 years old, I believe. You know, not with her family, not with her community. And, you know, again, how media portrays Native women. This is just a great example of, you know, how Native women are sexualized and plays into the part of why Indigenous women are targeted. And, you know, we are vulnerable. And so therefore, yeah, no, that's okay. Go ahead. Sorry. And so, you know, with history, there's so much history here that we can talk about, and there's so much information. And, you know, if anybody wants to chime in the chat or whatnot with comments, please let me know. You know, I'm not the, you know, the expert per se. You know, I know information. And so anyway, there's just a lot of great resources out there. So what does the crisis look like today? Well, we see it in the media, right? Or lack thereof in the media. Perfect example is the Gabby Petito case. You know, I feel for anyone's family and victims that have gone missing. But that's where our Indigenous women are missing and not having the attention they deserve with this crisis. So, so it intersects with other crimes such as sexual assault, sex trafficking, domestic violence, intimate partner violence. You know, there is femicide. So when a woman is killed by their intimate partner. Oh, okay. So it's live streaming. So other crimes, sex trafficking is definitely a huge one. And I'll talk about it in a little bit, but the case of sex trafficking in northern Minnesota near Line 3, and those were actually, you know, Enbridge workers who were trafficking the Native women in that area. So, you know, of course, this crisis didn't happen overnight. It's historical. It's been throughout centuries, and, you know, we're kind of gaining momentum. And it's kind of a hot topic, I guess you could say, which, you know, we want this attention and we want, you know, the statistics and leaders and, you know, to be aware of what's going on in Indian country. So, yeah, go ahead. And so that's a link to the article about the trafficking that was happening in northern Minnesota at Line 3, and which is the impending doom that we are trying to prevent here in the Straits at Line 5. So it's connected to us as Indigenous women. As Regina mentioned, you know, we are life givers, we are water protectors, and Indigenous women are sacred. And, you know, so if these men are coming to our area to build this tunnel, to work on the pipeline, are they respecting our land? Absolutely not. Are they respecting our people? Absolutely not. You know, so they treat it as a commodity, right? So, and sex trafficking and sexual exploitation is, you know, the exchange of money. And so that's, you know, I guess what it comes down to is, you know, my perspective, like they're not respecting our land, so they're not going to respect our people, our women. Yes. So also, was it June 2021, the Keystone XL pipeline that project was terminated. Now, I haven't heard anything since that, and I could be wrong. I'm sorry, I don't want to misspeak, but if anybody has information, if it's changed or, but yeah, you know, and to see where the pipelines are, you know, all the way from Canada down to Montana and North Dakota, those are all along our Indigenous lands, right? And by our Indigenous people. And as we are most vulnerable and we have the highest, you know, cases of violence going on. So next slide. Excuse me. So this is a great graphic. You know, it kind of really shows the, you know, statistics out there. And I guess one thing about data and statistics, collecting research, you know, those kind of things and numbers, is that, like Regina was saying again, you know, those are just numbers, but, you know, they're real people. These are our lives, our communities, our loved ones, and our relatives. And also there's a huge disparity in data. So for instance, on, it's called NAMUS, NAMUS. And that's kind of where someone could be reported missing and or murdered. And sometimes there's not a classification for race, or they misclassify. So we're not getting that accurate number of the actual number of how many Indigenous women, if they're not being classified as that. So 1 in 5 cases occurred in regions near where the Key XL pipeline is proposed to be built. So this was, you know, years ago, but you know, it still reigns today that, you know, near where the pipeline sites are, these numbers are increasing. So, you know, and those crimes can occur, like I was talking about, domestic violence, sexual assault, and we have those man camps, right? And so you have an influx of demand, say, in talking about sex trafficking. So if there's a demand for it, you know, then they're going to try to profit. So, so 1 in 4 alleged murderers of an Indigenous woman or girl were never held accountable. And over 1/3 of murder cases were wrongfully classified as accidental, exposure, natural causes, or they said it was suicide, overdose, that kind of thing. And so again, that's where the disparities come. Is it really being classified in the correct way? And you know, the lack of jurisdiction of tribes, and that certainly plays into it. So, and that's a huge thing, you know. So if man camp and bridge worker or whoever else workers are coming onto our lands and have seen this historically, that even if you commit a crime on Indigenous land against Indigenous person, Indigenous woman, they're not being held accountable. So, you know, so they're not going to have that respect, like, oh, well, I can, you know, do this and not get in trouble kind of thing. And yeah, so it's just kind of, you know, astonishing. And, you know, and I work with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and, you know, trafficking and, you know, in our area, and those numbers are already so high that it hurts my heart to think if man camps were to be here in Mackinac. So we would have Little Traverse, Bay Ann, Sault Ste. Marie, and Bay Mills, you know, and our women are the most vulnerable, you know, so it really is, we're trying to prevent that, right? So next slide. Oh, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. And this is a great graphic as well. Although this is speaking about Canada, we know that it's similar here in the United States. So Fort St. James RCMP reported a 40% increase in sexual assault during construction of the Alberta tar sands area. And has some of the highest rates of sexual violence and missing and murdered Indigenous women. Excuse me. So, we can see the increased rates of sexual assault, intimate partner violence, human trafficking. I don't know if anybody has ever seen the film Wind River. It's about, based on real events, and a woman that, was murdered. She had a relationship with a spoiler alert, sorry. She had a relationship with a non-native man who was actually working with on the pipeline, and was sexually assaulted and subsequently murdered. And anyway, so the Wind River film goes through the barriers and challenges of trying to find her, trying to prosecute, trying to gather evidence between, the state police, the county police, the federal government, and how those jurisdictions can really put a delay on the case. And we have all these other layers of, challenges and barriers than other people, non-native people, right? And so it's very difficult to charge these cases, have the evidence, the follow through. Historically, our relationship with the federal government has never been great. So I guess until we can have our full jurisdiction back, then we're going to see this accountability being held against these non-native people doing this to our community. So, there is the Violence Against Women's Act, and that is up for reauthorization. We're hoping to have that enhanced because right now it only includes domestic violence, dating violence, and violations of personal protection orders. So that gives tribes the right to, or the jurisdiction, the sovereignty back to be able to prosecute non-natives. But again, it's only for those crimes, and it has to be intimate partner violence. So some sort of relationship with the person, whether it's an intimate relationship, child in common, that kind of thing. And, at Little Traverse Bay Bands, we have such a limited jurisdiction, trust land, right? Where, the cases that I'm seeing, the victims and survivors that my program is assisting with, majority of them are not even in court, have not even been reported. So there's that disparity in data again of where victims, don't report because of these reasons, the lack of accountability, the lack of jurisdiction, and follow through. So, you can go to the next slide. Excuse me. So you may have seen a billboard out in Petoskey. It's right there by the Odin State Fish Hatchery. And it says, I don't think it says invisible no more. Say her name, I believe it says, but it has the same graphic and the statistics on there. And the Native Justice Coalition graciously provided funds to have that billboard up in our area, to provide awareness and outreach. And, I guess, there's a lack of understanding or awareness in our area about this epidemic that's going on. We live in a high tourism area, so I'm just very grateful we have the opportunity to have a billboard. So, just talking more about the extreme levels of violence we have going on in our communities. And so like Regina was talking about earlier too, the numbers are just, 56% of Native American women face sexual violence in their lifetime. So it's not a matter of if you will be sexually assaulted, it's a matter of when. And again, some don't report it, so that can sow the disparity. So on some reservations, Native American women face murder rates that are more than 10 times the national average. The jurisdictional piece, Indigenous women are sexually and physically abused and murdered at 10 times the national average in America. And again, I have the Wind River film there. And, you know, I guess I would say highly trigger warning for this film. You know, and I couldn't even watch the whole thing myself, to be honest with you all, because of the trauma and the triggers. So anyway, just be aware of that if you are going to watch the film. And also, homicide is the third leading cause of death among 10 to 24 years of age, and the fifth leading cause of death for American Indian Alaska Native women between 25 and 34 years of age. So if you think about that, you know, like our young people are being targeted. Yeah. Is there any comments? I don't want to just keep talking at everybody, or we can save them to the end or whatnot if you would like to. Right, VAWA hasn't been reauthorized as of yet. But like with the enhancements of including sexual assault, trafficking, elder abuse, child abuse, and so there are, I believe there's 3 tribes in Michigan implementing the Violence Against Women Act right now. LTBB is one of them. Sault Ste. Marie tribe is one of them. Nottawasepi, and I believe there is another I could be missing. So I'm sorry if I missed them. Yeah, I believe that's about it for me right now. And again, there's lots of great resources out there. I can share this PowerPoint if you would like, and other links to resources, information and data. And also, you know, so tribes are, you know their communities the best and can make, you know, the response plan, like Sioux Tribe in Bay Mills has their response plan, and LTBB certainly plans to do that as well. Okay. Colleen, I see your hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me, Stacey?
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering the states in our country, if there's certain states where this problem is way worse. I mean, I would imagine wherever that pipeline was would be one of them, but do you have, like, say, you know, the top 5 states where this is a problem or anything like that that would indicate where Michigan might fall?
Right. And so again, it's really hard to get that accurate data. But from my perspective and what I've seen is Montana is definitely up there, as well as North Dakota, South Dakota, Michigan. You know, I can't say for sure, but there was a study done by the Urban Indian Health Institute about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And I believe there was 580 some cases. And when I looked at the map they provided, I believe there was only maybe 1 or 2 cases in Michigan. And like I said, I'm pretty sure the majority was Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, you know, New Mexico. Some of those bigger reservations, I guess you could say, would have the larger numbers of missing and murdered.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I see your hand raised again.
I forgot to put it down, but
Oh.
now that you've called on me, I do have something I might share. I have a very close friend who's a Yaqui Indian, and her daughter disappeared 23 years ago. And my good friend had to raise her grandchildren, and they have since relocated. I mean, I'm from the Flint area. This is where they were from, but my friend relocated to the San Antonio area. But to this day, you know, the girl who went missing, her name was Christine. You know, her brother lives close to where I live, and the family's all friends on Facebook. So it's very sad to see they'll never know, I guess, whatever happened to their mother. And it's just a terrible sadness, in the family. It's hard to watch.
Yes, definitely. And, so many unknowns, and, that the age that people are being murdered, is so young. So you would have young children, and so maybe grandparents and other family would have to, take on that responsibility, of caring for the children. So, and there are lots of resources out there, for families that are experiencing, this epidemic going on. Like the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. Like I said, in Michigan, all our 12 tribes have victim service programs. And so sometimes people ask, like, well, what can I do about this? Like you kind of just feel maybe hopeless or just overwhelmed by the information about what's going on. So if you know someone who is going through this, asking them like, how can I best support you? And maybe it's just making dinner one night, or, simple things like that can definitely make a difference. And, and the federal government is finally, recognizing this, and there are, grant funds out there to help in the, with this crisis, and, task forces. Michigan does not have a MMIP task force yet. Minnesota does, Wisconsin, New Mexico, Montana, I believe, and other states. And I'm sorry if I missed any or misspoke, but it's something that Michigan is definitely going to work on. There is a Missing and Murdered Indigenous People Coordinator, Joel Postma, through the federal government. He is based in, my goodness, is it Manistee? I believe he is based in the UP. That, he's working with tribes to create and, assist with these response plans. So when someone does go missing, we have step 1, step 2, we have everything to a T, figured out for a response. So. Yes, and I got a question about, with the lack of data, are there organizations out there that are, studying to get this accurate information? And one I can think of right now is the Sovereign Bodies Institute. They are grassroots. They have a database actually. And so if you go on their website, you can submit to their database. So say you have a loved one, missing person, you can submit their name and information to this database. And so since the lack of response from any sort of government or, law enforcement agency, Sovereign Bodies created this database. And a lot of times, we see missing on social media, and that's how people are being found, is not because of the response from the government, from law enforcement. It's because of our own communities coming together, uniting, and working to find missing.
How can we as a community make changes on this? Is there anything we can do? Or as a caucus even, we have people.
Excuse me, definitely. So in your area, so say if you're in this area, Little Traverse Bay Bands, or in the Traverse area, Grand Traverse Bay Bands, seeing if there's any way to assist with their tribal response program or tribal response plan when someone goes missing. What could you do to support that? Volunteer, and just creating that safe space for victims' families and loved ones to gain that support, going through this, terrible tragedy, and having the support of your community, I think really makes a difference. Also, like I said, we don't have a state task force right now in Michigan, and I think that that's definitely needed. So, it's something that tribal leaders can bring forward, asking for, the state tribal task force, the Minnesota Indian Women Sexual Assault Coalition, advocated to get a Minnesota state task force started. You know, so advocating for that kind of legislation definitely helps.
Yeah, that would be something that a caucus could work on, the legislation. Maybe we can copy some of what they've done in the other states and build off of there, and then probably after the next elections, get people, you know, legislators to see if we can get support on that.
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, we're, like I said, there's a lot of work being done. And so, right, you know, looking at different states and different tribal programs, different organizations and agencies that have, you know, made steps forward, we can certainly, you know, collaborate. And you know, the 12 tribes of Michigan, you know, I know would be more than happy to share, excuse me, the response plan like Sioux Tribe and Bay Mills did. You know, so, yeah, definitely collaboration.
I don't know how to raise my little not hand, so I see my action button. Thank you for your work, Stacey Miigwech. It's hard to know what to say. You know, I have a 11-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old daughter, and you know, thinking about like, you know, what we can do. It's I guess my thoughts go to so much with these pipelines. You know, we hear like it's always touted as, oh, it's jobs, and it's like somehow that makes it all like any objection you know, it's untouchable. So, you know, certainly we have our objections that are very strong because it's such a threat to the water. But I think, you know, just that it's like a threat to our people also is maybe something we could, I've heard it before, certainly, you know, but maybe kind of foreground more and more, just say like, this is why these pipelines can't keep happening. This is why it's unwelcome. This is what it means. This is what those jobs mean, you know, and it's not untouchable. And I think part of what's so disheartening for us is that it just seems like another example of like, that privileging of like, this is the work, this is the voter that matters to us, this is who we want to keep happy. And then it's like the sacrifice is, we're the sacrifice, the water's the sacrifice, and that it's just the same tired story is really hard. So I mean, I guess like, you know, just saying that we're already working really hard against those pipelines, just that the two are so linked, I think is a really interesting thing for us to just say it till people are aware of it. And then maybe those, you know, that untouchable jobs will have a few more things attached to them in the, you know, in the more widespread consciousness that isn't there yet.
Definitely, yeah, miigwech for that. So I heard in St. Ignace there is some sort of office open for people to come in and ask questions, possibly to Enbridge. Anybody else know about that? I believe, I don't know if it's open yet, but Enbridge has it there to try to ease the community. I don't know, but anyway, there's certainly.
That would be a great road trip for all of us, huh?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see somebody asked about an Amber Alert, something similar for missing person, missing a murdered Indigenous person. I am not aware of. It's been mentioned many times that I've heard to do something similar for missing and murdered women, children, and relatives. And yeah, you know, Facebook, social media, you know, flyers are posted about missing relatives. And, you know, for a while there, that was kind of the only way that relatives were being found, you know, so, you know, there is the MMU, missing and murdered unit, and the missing and murdered Indigenous person coordinator here at the federal level in Michigan. So
Hey, Nat, Would this be a good time to talk about that law that, or that, your case that you took to the Supreme Court? Wouldn't that be important for this? He's gonna shoot me. Matt Spur, I know I saw him on here. Well, I guess we'll ask him later.
Yeah, and I just see a comment about, the perpetrators knowing the gap of jurisdiction. And, we see that a lot with domestic violence, intimate partner violence, non-native perpetrators, knowing that they could be on a reservation with a tribal woman. And before VAWA, without, they call it special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction, where it's not special, they're giving us our jurisdiction back that we've always had our inherent sovereignty. But anyway, for an Indigenous woman who was being, abused, to call law enforcement and say, this is happening, and for nothing to happen, to the perpetrator not being held accountable, they're going to keep doing this violence. And I've seen perpetrators jump from reservation to reservation, knowing that, and sometimes there can be a miscommunication with tribes, or maybe not like a an offender tracking system, where there is NCIC, and there's also right to track perpetrators. So anyway, so my point is just that perpetrators for sure know to jump from reservation and be kind of untouchable, where we have the Violence Against Women Act now. So if it was a Native woman, non-Native man as the perpetrator on reservation land, trust land, that person would be able to be held accountable. But it actually can only be up to 1 year sentence, because there's the Tribal Law and Order Act. Some tribes have that enacted. Little Traverse Bay Band does not. And so that would enhance the sentencing to up to 3 years, I believe. And actually, I recall there was an incident that happened at our own Odawa casino where it was a Native woman employee and non-Native perpetrator intimate partner came in and essentially assaulted her, and tribal law enforcement was only able to issue a federal ticket. So you just assaulted someone and you're getting this piece of paper instead of being arrested. And so thankfully for the VAWA, now we would be able to hold them accountable and house them, arrest them. But yeah, that was missing before. And, and it's still, with the lack of jurisdiction, it's still happening. So. And so, yeah, any, social media blast out there you can do for trying to reauthorize Violence Against Women Act, and other related legislation. So.
I'm sorry if you already mentioned this. So that Violence Against Women Act that is hopefully going to be reauthorized. Were you saying part of that is, or an effort for part of that is to sort of deal with some of these jurisdiction issues? Is part included now?
So, right. So right now, it can only cover intimate partner violence. And so right now we're looking to enhance it to include elder abuse, child abuse, so other crimes. So you would be able to cover more crimes in tribal court and be able to hold more perpetrators accountable, but it still would have to be within the tribe's trust land, their jurisdiction. And, as a lot of, tribal communities have, checkerboard jurisdiction. So it's not just one, 1,000-mile reservation or 1,000-mile. Anyway, yeah. So there's still that, definitely. So, it's not like 100% fixed, but, it'll definitely help.
Sorry, this is how I always was in school too. With that it's, you said when it's like partners is what it covers. Is strangers not included in there just because that's assumed covered by other things, or is it just a total like bad thing that's been left out?
So the most violence that is happening that, you know, and I can't speak for every community, but in our community is domestic violence. Rarely is it a stranger sexual assault. Rarely is it a stranger assault. It's usually someone that the victim knows, has a relationship, you know, is a relative, you know, is an acquaintance even. You know, rarely is it a stranger doing these things. And, you know, with other missing and murdered cases, you know, it has a lot to do with, and I can't speak for every case, of course, but, you know, a lot is intimate partner violence. You know, these women are murdered and then are not found by their intimate partner, or, you know, say they were being sex trafficked. So they're in this, you know, they're in this life where they're being, you know, exploited for money. And a lot of times victims consider the, you know, head person or whatnot their boyfriend, their intimate partner. So it's not going to be a stranger. You know, the stories about, you know, there's a white van in the Walmart parking lot where this guy is, you know, going to grab you, you know, kind of thing. It's really insidious. What's happening is where, you know, the person, you're manipulated, you're coerced to get into the life of sex trafficking, you know, or be in a relationship with someone and be abused. You know, that's really what's going on. So.
We have a Facebook question. Says the VAWA hasn't been reauthorized as far as I know it. Are you saying it was? The US Senate has turned it down from a vote many times.
Right, I'm sorry, I don't mean to confuse at all. So it has not been reauthorized at this time with the enhancements that I'm aware of. And then I see, how do the man camps figure into this? Acquaintance is made first, so not at that point a stranger, right? I'm sorry, I apologize. So typically a perpetrator who is looking to exploit a Native woman is going to try to gain some sort of trust with that person, become an acquaintance even. You know, that's kind of a lot what's going on, is that relationship is being created, and then you're kind of trapped. You know, there's power and control. There's abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse going on. And then, you know, and then it's hard to get out of that because it's such a dangerous situation, whether firearms are involved, whether it's drugs being involved, you know, it's happening. And actually last year we put I'm sorry, no, it was this year. There was a public service announcement that Little Traverse Bay Bands, we were able to fund, and we collaborated with Leslie King. She is a trafficking survivor from Grand Rapids. And that PSA kind of really shows, you know, how young people can be kind of, you know, targeted and pulled into the life of trafficking, you know, and become stuck, you know, so that's typically what we're seeing going on. So, and so, yeah, if these man camps and these workers are in our community, you know, are they going to, you know, go to a local bar or whatnot and start assaulting women or start assaulting people? Not necessarily. They could, they might. are they going to try to insidiously make relationships with the community and the people to trust them, begin relationships, and manipulate and coerce and abuse? Yeah.
That sounds like Emerage's MO, right? Okay, I have another question from Facebook. Guys, is that okay? So do you know if something similar to an Amber Alert for children is being developed for missing and murdered women, children, and relatives? I see postings on Facebook and such, but is something being worked on anywhere on a state or federal level?
Right. Yeah, I saw that. Not that I'm aware of. I've heard it being talked about. That's something that could help. I'm not aware of anything right now. I could be wrong. I could be missing something. So I apologize if I am. But I haven't seen anything yet about that. But, I think that would be a great idea, right? To have some sort of Amber Alert that goes out to, people to be on the lookout, for these people. So yeah, it's definitely something to work towards. Absolutely. And I think, funding has a lot to do with it as well. Where are you going to get these funds? Is it from grant funds? Is it fundraising? Is it, kind of grassroots? So. Were there any other questions or comments that you saw? And again, I've been a domestic violence, sexual assault advocate for about, 10, 12 years. And I'm by no means an expert. Victims and our communities and our relatives, know the best about what's going to help. And I'm thankful that we're having this tonight. So thank you so much for attending and listening. And there's so much information to know, all the way down from, historically from Pocahontas to, boarding schools, right? Our children were taken, and murdered, right? And then in Indian Child Welfare Act, so there's a lot of layers of information going on. So I see a comment. So after a particular case, right. Yeah, I agree for sure. So he says, after the Petito case, missing persons in general has gotten a lot more attention. Would be great to tie to Amber Alerts. Yes, certainly. Yeah, there was a graphic going on around on Instagram that I saw that there was, this white woman with all the microphones in front of her, right? But then you had the Indigenous woman in the back, like we were, depicting that we are invisible instead of being, have all the attention, so invisible no more. Yeah, so it just is a great depiction. So, yeah, and, there has been, was it an NBC special or was it a Dateline? I believe that there was a Dateline special about missing and murdered Indigenous women, which is great. So we're gaining that momentum and that attention or awareness that should have been there in the first place. But okay.
Stacey,
Yeah.
I just want to give a heads up there, but I thank you for what you're doing. Very much appreciated. What you call it, November 12th at 8 o'clock is on the Oxygen channel. Friday night at 8 o'clock is going to be a MMIW documentary for an hour. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. I've got it on my calendar, and those type of things, I think, bring it to the forefront. I don't think anybody in Indian country is asking for any special favors it's just an equal basis. Okay, it's we're definitely outnumbered when the Gabby Patino case takes front and center, and we have a lot of Indigenous children and women that have been missing for a long time. They just don't garner the attention because there's a lot of that baggage that goes with it. There's a lot of misconceptions about tribal country as it is, whether it's the big reservations or somebody with us like 1,200 acres that we have. And that's part of the reason that we have such a hard time getting the MMIW situation under control, because it varies from state to state, tribe to tribe, and across the board. But it's definitely starting to pick up speed. I know they haven't, what's the VAWA hasn't been, just can't garner the bipartisan support at the Senate level, it seems. It's a big monster up there in DC, and but I think if we can keep at it and get the knowledge out there, get the numbers out there, and beat up the congressmen, the senators, and the local people to get them to understand that it is an ongoing situation. It's not going to get any easier. I think what you're doing and what the rest of the people are doing to bring light to this situation is a very positive thing in a very negative situation. It's definitely, we are a nation divided right now. And it's going to be hard if we can get some type of bipartisan support at the national level to get this situation at least to take root. It won't be solved, but at least we'll be able to take root if we can get some people to stand arm in arm with the tribes and moving forward. But I do appreciate you putting this on, Stacey. Miigwech.
Yeah, miigwech, definitely. Thank you for letting us know about that special too. That's going to be on Oxygen. Yeah.
Yep, 8 o'clock.
Great.
You know, when you've been talking and, you know, it's like sure, not new to you to that having us a heart of just knowing all these statistics and that it's, you know, people's families. But, you know, what Mr. Kilgore was just saying about something positive. I guess it's like, I just had the thought that you saying this and that we're showing up here and people are like, oh, what can we do? And, you know, looking at that billboard, I think it does show that we're not just saying, oh, that's our lot. Oh, well, you know, and I guess, you know, another way we've been defeated, you know, we're not letting that be what our response is. And I think that's really powerful and something that can be heartening to us, that like we haven't been cowed by it and we won't be. So go ahead.
I also think that brings up the fact that we need to get more Indigenous people running in these offices to protect our own women and children. We need to be part of these laws that are coming out that are ignoring us and not giving us a voice or protecting us in ways that we should be.
Absolutely. And, you know, victims and relatives and people that have experienced this, you know, should really be at the forefront.
Mhm.
You know, having experienced it, you know, yourself, who more better to you know, bring forth what should be done, what could be done, what should be included, is so important. You know, like with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, you know, having their voices heard is so very important. You know, victims of all crimes, men, women, children, you know, their voices definitely should be at the forefront, you know, advocating for these changes. And, you know, just hearing horrific stories. I mean, you know, how it's affected your whole life. And, you know, that can really help with legislation. You know, there is a government to government consultation that the Office on Violence Against Women has annually. listening to tribes and their experiences about, how violence has affected their communities, makes a huge impact. So. There's also a film, Sisters Rising. The Native Justice Coalition held a viewing of that a couple weeks ago. It's a great film. It really focuses on sexual assault. And again, like I had said previously, it's not if you're going to be sexually assaulted if you're an Indigenous person, but when, and just it goes with some personal stories. So I would recommend that film as well. Yeah.
What was the film? I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, so it's called Sisters Rising. I can for sure send you a link.
And there was a show on Oxygen tonight too, was it?
Did you say Friday, Fred?
Friday?
No, the 12th.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Friday the 12th at 8 o'clock at night.
Yep.
On the Oxygen channel, it's a 1-hour documentary.
Thank you. Miigwech. Is Eva on? Yes. If you want to take a few minute break, I know Stacey has to do something really fast. We have a store that's open and Eva Menifee will be in there in a few minutes. And we'll have our raffle tickets and we have t-shirts for sale. Oops, I gotta make the room again. Oh, hold on. It must have disappeared when I had to sign out and do all that again. So we'll name room 2, we'll call it the store. That way you can check out what we've got if you like. So would 10 minutes work for you, Stacey, or do you need a little bit longer?
Yeah.
Or is it the wrong time for you? I was guessing because you said 8 and it's after.
Right. Yeah, I had to get my son to bed, but yeah, if you could do 10 minutes, that would be great. I appreciate it.
Okay, everybody, does that sound good? 10-minute break?
Good.
Andrea, can you send me to the store, please?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Okay. And now that she's there should be a button on the bottom that says breakout room. And then you click it and you can go to the store and you can come back later. But if not, I can tell you, or I can send you, you gotta check out our awesome raffle items and our t-shirts. We have the wolf t-shirt that Nicole with an H, her daughter made or designed it. And then we have the another one that's Custer equals loser, because we're trying to remove that Custer statue out of Monroe. So take a peek. And you can also make a donation too. We will be very happy for donations.
Andrea, I don't see the room.
You don't see the room?
Nope.
Open all rooms. Try that. Okay. All right, so I guess everybody got invited. So it's up to you. I'm not forcing you. I just don't know how to work this that well. I'm trying. All right, she looks like she's gone. And I'm asking a senator and a House rep how we would get this taken care of about an Amber Alert. Would anybody else like to take a quick peek? Okay. Oh. Oh, I'm just can't do anything with that. If I can move over to another room to see if anybody's in there, it says I'll go disconnect. And we can still put questions in the chat. Oh, Kyle wanted to see. Hold on, I'll send you. Okay.
Hey, Andrea,
Yes.
I think we all got sent to that breakout room and there still isn't a store there. So everybody's over in the breakout room.
Oh, okay, because it doesn't tell me that.
Yeah. I figured out how to leave the room. I thought I'd let you know.
All right. Oh my goodness. Tell them I'm sorry. I'm still learning how to work on this.
That's okay. I don't know how to do it. I don't even know how to go back. So I'm here with you and I'm going to stay here.
Are you sure I can send you?
Oh, wait. Maybe I can be in the breakout
There
room.
should be a button on the bottom that
Oh,
says
I do see
breakout.
join breakout room. Yeah. But I didn't see a store in there. Is that where the store was supposed to be?
Yeah, there should be one now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think it disappeared when I got kicked out. And see, it doesn't say that. It's supposed to tell me.
Andrea, I'm still not seeing anything about the store in the breakout room.
Okay, who are you?
Barb.
Barb. Oh, it says you went. Hold on, let me see if I can do it.
Yeah, I went in.
Oops. I am so rude. I'm sorry. Okay. Ethel. Oh, maybe these people that says not join were trying to go to the store. Anybody else want to go? I'm looking at the chats now. If you do, you can send me a chat or you can unmute yourself and tell me. It's just to give a few minutes so that Stacy can put her little one to bed. Do this until Stacy gets back. Anybody have any questions or comments? Oh,
Yeah, I just see some comments, about the Petito case. Yeah, and how much, attention that got. And again, it all plays into, the stereotypes I was just mentioning, just trying to blame it on something like, substance use. Oh, if they're, it's kind of the same, looking at victims as being their fault, right? Somebody mentioned that in the chat too, is that, victims are questioned more than perpetrators, where, the focus should really be on the perpetrators, and not the victims. And so that's that paradigm shift that really needs to be made. And I think we're getting towards it, to where victims aren't being, blamed and victim shamed so much. Well, I mean, it really is happening. So it's not that it's not happening, but yeah, so the focus should be on the accountability and responsibility of perpetrators. So I believe it's like 80% to 90% of perpetrators against Native women in intimate partner domestic violence relationships, the perpetrators are non-Native. And that's what we're seeing the most. So yeah, that's kind of all I have. I know there was one thing I wanted to pull up, and I can send it in the chat. Excuse me. Let me just find that real quick. Okay, so there's this honoring warrior women. Zuya, okay, so sorry, I can send it, but anyway, there's a study on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in states impacted by the Keystone XL pipeline. So federal agencies report that 1 in 3 Native women will be raped in their lifetime. Statistics like these are used to terrorize Indigenous women and girls and do not reflect the realities of our communities and do not enhance the sovereignty and self-determination of Indigenous women and girls and their nations. So trying to do a paradigm shift so we can say instead that 1 in 3 Native women survive to become warriors alongside the spirits of the missing and murdered. By reclaiming data about who we are as Indigenous women, we reclaim our bodies and our strength. These women warriors are surrounded by dragonflies, the cover art on here, reminding us the life-sustaining power of women and of the inherent connection between our fight for water and our fight for women. Our women warriors guide us to safety just as dragonflies guide us to water. So that is a great study to look through.
Would you like to share that screen? I can.
Oh, sure.
Not this one. You can share yours.
Sure. I will post this in the chat right here. And then I will, oh, sorry, probably can't. Anyway, yes, I will share. Sorry. Okay, and then I will, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, great. So here's the cover art, honoring warrior women. And then that's the part I just read. And yeah, so it was by the Sovereign Bodies Institute and Brave Heart Society. So they collaborated and compiled this data in South Dakota and the neighboring areas impacted by the Keystone XL pipe.
I like that. It gives us our strength.
Yes, I know that is so profound that, instead of
Sitting there waiting to be victimized.
Right, which we're not. I mean, we are such a resilient people, and women are a huge part of our communities, and protectors of the water. So, getting back to our original value system of holding women in high regard and being respected, and all those 7 grandfather teachings that we have lost, that we can incorporate in our lives today. So yeah, this talks about how women provide the first medicine of water in the womb and are keepers of the water on our lands for future generations. We're life givers of our nation and are now being threatened by large man camps settling by the Keystone XL pipeline route and in other fracking areas and fossil fuel development project without regard to our sacred Indigenous life ways as recognized in nation-to-nation treaties with the U.S. government and its people. So this shows some data. So from Dakotas, Montana, and Nebraska. Yeah, so there's some maps. Okay. So, right, if you look at, the line of where the pipelines are, certainly through our indigenous land and, consequently increase MMIW cases. And the barriers to justice, like we've been talking about jurisdictional complexity. There's also a great, excuse me, study by the Amnesty International, and I can send that to, it's called The Maze of Injustice. And I just feel like that's a great analogy because it really is a maze and it's absolutely injustice. So, gender violence by law enforcement, absolutely. I've heard horror stories from Canada and other places in the US about law enforcement violence towards Native women, specifically sexual assault. Absolutely.
Wasn't it the Emmett County Sheriff's up there a couple years ago? Remember?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay.
I probably heard about it and I just can't think of it right now, but.
The other head, excuse me, I was eating candy. There was a big sting operation up there and was Emmett County, the police officers up there were caught stopping women and they had to perform sexual acts and not get put in jail. It was all over the news a few years ago, just up north. Would you send a link to these maps and associated article, please?
Yes, for sure, yes.
Now, this is off of your computer. We're not actually going to get these links.
Oh, I can send, this is a PDF, so I can share the document.
Yeah, that would be great. But if this right now, just sticking this in won't help us as soon as you hang, well, it won't help us anyway because we don't have your computer. But the PDFs would be fabulous.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but
Yep.
Stick them in the chat.
But if it did come from an article, I'd like to take a look at the original article too.
For this specific study?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I just sent the PDF form of it. And so there wasn't I don't know that I have a link for it. I'm sorry.
Oh, maybe it's in the document. I bet it is.
Possibly.
So, yeah, you don't have to look now.
I can put, oops, what am I doing? I'm sorry. I can always email things as well, so.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Did you see the report from Robin? Thank you, Robin. Miigwech.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Sovereign Bodies is a great resource. Okay, so someone was asking about like the amount of cases per state. And so this study mentions it does Montana, South Dakota, Nebraska, and North Dakota. And so it looks like in Montana, 174 cases total, nearly 3/4 of which happened after 2000. 4 and 5 cases are murders. Nearly half of all cases were misclassified by police. So it's that whether it was like by natural cause or overdose, suicide, those kinds of things. Approximately 1 in 4 alleged perpetrators were never charged or convicted. South Dakota, 158 cases total, and 9 in 10 cases are murders. Over 1/3 of victims did not have a relationship with their killer. Okay. Nearly half of alleged perpetrators are non-native. North Dakota, 2 in 5 victims did not have a relationship with their killer. 1 in 2 alleged perpetrators are non-native. Nearly half of all cases are misclassified or unsolved. And Nebraska, over half of all cases are girls 18 and under. 2/3 of cases are unsolved. Nearly half of alleged perpetrators were not charged or convicted. 2/3 of alleged perpetrators are non-native.
Oh, these statistics are just terrifying.
Right. Oops. Yeah, certainly our youth are targeted, our children. Okay, so information about sex trafficking. So it says that approximately 4,000 cases, at least 10% experience sexual violence, and over half of those cases involve sex trafficking or survival sex work. So that's definitely something to mention, is the survival sex work. It's, just that, trying to survive and doing that work to, save your own life. Exploited. So. Yeah, so there's great information here. Yeah. Oh, that's important. Law enforcement negligence and incapacity. Whether it's not following through, lack of evidence, investigation. A lot of times in these cases, the family of the victims are the ones pushing law enforcement for, like, this needs to be done, or talk to this person, here's this information, when really law enforcement should be, the ones taking on that responsibility. And so if we have a solid, tribal response plan saying, 1, 2, 3, this is what our law enforcement is going to do when someone is missing, and, full investigation, collecting evidence, all those things is important.
Stacey, Colleen has her hand raised.
Okay, hi, yep.
Hi, Stacey. I was just thinking of something that's used in the general population, which is fingerprinting children. The Masonic lodges around here in the Flint area, they do it for free. And many, many parents bring their children out to be fingerprinted. And the purpose of it is, like, if the child goes missing, of course, to be able to identify them maybe that way, but also if remains are found, a way of identifying children. I just wondered if the tribes have done any of this at all, or if they would be for it, or could it be somewhat helpful? I mean, it doesn't stop the crime, but it helps, in the end, or help to locate the children. I know adults might have second thoughts, like, well, I don't want anyone to take my fingerprints. I know I got fingerprinted not too long ago for some reason. I don't remember what it was, but, it made me a little nervous too. But it's just something that popped in my mind, because in some ways, there's not a lot we can do to stop these horrible criminals. And, but this is something that is something you can do, and it's been kind of popular around here.
I remember that with my daughter when she was younger. She's in her 30s. I'll be nice to her. And when she was growing up, it was all over the place. It was like that Rough the Dog or something, had like a little thing, and you did the fingerprint, and it had a picture of like the front and the back of somebody, and you put like a scar if they fell down, or a birthmark or something like that, so that if something happened, you'd have that information. I bet I still got that somewhere. Knowing the pack rat I am.
I know I volunteered to help one time, and I remember, I don't know if I helped them fill out the form, or I think I know there was a computer that I had to enter things and so forth.
I wouldn't want it entered into a police database, though, unless something happened. I mean, I wouldn't want them to have that information. I won't even do DNA on me because of, what they do with our information. You got to remember, we have that distrust also, right?
Right. Yeah. And even I hesitated. I don't think we got our sons done, but yeah, you hesitate to do that. But
yeah, I did the at-home kit.
Wanted it done. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where my thoughts went with doing that with children, the mistrust with, agencies like law enforcement,
Mhm.
governments, and what they could do with that potential information and fingerprints. It's possible. And it's something that many communities may be using. I'm not aware, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, because it kind of just stopped. You don't see that anymore. It was when my daughter was growing up, it was like everywhere. But you can go get it done, but it was basically like an at-home kit, is what I remember. Because I had to roll her fingers across, little bitty fingers.
Mhm.
Oh, Colleen, raise your hand again.
Raise it again? I raised it? I thought I put it down. Oh,
Oh,
Lord.
no, I had put it down.
Oh, you put it down. Oh, so I clicked on it to put it down and I put it up by accident.
It's all good. Okay, let me check the chats. Okay, all right, continue.
Yeah, that's, kind of what I have right now. There's just so many resources out there, so much information to know. But, I think moving ahead, moving forward is, like we've talked about tonight, sharing those missing persons posts on social media. That seems like our best, way to go about this right now. And also, reaching out to those families, if or loved ones, to see how you can support them during, a difficult time where their loved one is missing or murdered. And for, people experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, reaching out and saying, how can I help? Just being a support person for them and, and then moving legislation forward, like we've talked about the state task force, possible Amber Alert, and just kind of educating, being here tonight. Thank you so much for educating yourself and any sort of events, outreach, awareness, looking at all the resources, learning the information. So, if there's no other questions, I believe that would be it for me.
Oh, Colleen, was that a for real one?
Yoo-hoo. Yeah, this is for real. I don't know if you happened to catch it, but a few nights ago, Tanya Jo Hall spent an hour describing her sexual abuse. And the reason I'm bringing it up is nobody's mentioned statutory rape case of a 16-year-old girl meeting a guy who's almost pushing 30 and thinking he's younger, like he's saying he's 21 or something like that. And parents happy about it because, the guy was a drug dealer or whatever. But in the end, a 16-year-old can't make sound decisions. They're impressed by the gifts of clothes and things and feeling cool. Man, she actually marries the guy, but the abuse, it was mostly emotional and that type of abuse. He didn't actually do a lot to hurt her physically, but it really impacted her life that he made her feel so, worthless and so forth. But so that's something that happens. That happened to be native on native. But the idea is, and I've heard of it more than once, of an older man, passing himself off as younger, and a real easily impressed young girl is taken in, and she becomes a part of her own victimization, so to speak.
Oh.
Doesn't even realize it. So I just threw that out there for what it's worth, Stacey. Just came to mind.
So a 16-year-old is still considered a minor. So that would be child sexual assault, child sexual abuse, and that's really happening a lot through the internet. What was that? Backpage, Craigslist, there's postings, there's different apps that teens use, Discord, any sort of platform where, young people will be, there are absolutely perpetrators out there manipulating, to get victims, whether it's for sex trafficking, whether it's for other purposes, but absolutely. So I would call that child sexual abuse and child sexual assault. Like there was these terms being thrown out in the media before, like child prostitute. There's no such thing as a child prostitute. It's a victim who is a minor who is being sexually abused and exploited. So like, again, the paradigm shift of not putting it on the victim, like they're a child, and putting it on to the perpetrator, the focus on them so they have the accountability.
Thanks for
Isn't
taking that last question.
Isn't that though the media playing an important role in how we get victimized again? I mean, because I've seen that a lot where you'll see a story in the headline is like, she or young woman raped or has sex with man, and you look at it and it's like a 12-year-old, and it's like there is no way. And then everybody reads that, well, now we're doing it here, I fixed it for you, and correcting it and going to the main article just so they know that we know that they're skewing our stories. But they've been doing that for a long time. And then we go to court, and that's how it plays out. This young girl, did something and made this man come and get her, and he just had to have sex with her against her will, screaming and crying, but it was all her fault.
Right, definitely. Yeah, that's where that victim blaming and shaming comes in, and young girls being targeted for sure. Like, I think the average age of entering into the life of sex trafficking, being brought into the life, is like 12, 13. Those are the ages that perpetrators are looking for to victimize them. And absolutely being victimized by, in sex trafficking. So, calling them prostitutes, well, they're being exploited, and having them charged with, crimes where they're the ones being victimized instead of putting it on the perpetrator who is committing the crime, so.
I just read something about that today where they were talking about crimes committed while you were being sexually trafficked aren't actually crimes. They're trying to pass a law about that. And I don't see how you can be a perpetrator of a crime when you're being a victim of another crime. Like that, what was it? Centoya girl, remember?
Yes, she was, now I forget the term for it, I'm sorry. But yeah, to survive, she killed her attacker, her perpetrator, her sex trafficker.
Took his money, and then they put her in jail because she killed and stole from him. But what did he steal from her?
Right. There is actually, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name right now, but I can look it up. There's Gabby, not Petito, but it's actually a Native woman who was actually sexually assaulted, and she is being charged in court right now. No, it's Madison. I can send the link, but anyway, definitely cases like that. And I wish I could think of the term right now. It's not pardoned, but yeah, I will think of it, send you, sorry.
Okay. Not a problem. We can put those in the, if you don't find them tonight, we can put them on our Facebook pages so that everybody can still get information. Of course, Ed is collecting for the website, which everybody should go check out, the AnishinaabekCaucus.org. We have a lot of information about different committees that or issues that we've been working on this year.
This is great. This has been great conversation and dialogue, and I appreciate you all being here. Chimiwich.
Yes, I am enjoying this, really just learning so much from you.
Thank you, Stacey. It was very interesting. And I feel more educated and more ready to step in when I can be of help.
Yes, thank you. All right, everyone have a great evening.
And we'll work on that alert system, eh?
Yes, definitely.
I'm getting questions.
I second Colleen's comments. This was very, very helpful, very, very educational. And I thank you and the others that contributed to this.
Okay, Take care, everyone. Bye, my
All right, Mama Peak Woman and miigwech so much.